Hey, here we are. We made it.
We did.
We are live again. Real Heroes Show, here to talk about Marvel Studios, The Eternals, which they dropped the V from, just like in the social network. They dropped the V from the Facebook and made it Facebook because it was cleaner. Nick, how are you doing today, my friend?
Yeah, doing well. Doing well. It's Monday, but
Eh,
it's a
yes, it
short
is.
week for me, which is fine because of Veterans Day and then taking Friday off of work
Oh,
as
nice.
well.
So you have a
So
3 day
yeah, it's
work
a few
week.
day work week. Yeah,
That is not bad at all, man.
not at all. Not at all.
How did daylight savings time hit you?
Dude, I loved it. I enjoy
Yeah?
this time of year.
Oh, I
Yeah,
hate it.
the reason why I hate it, or I mean hate it, the reason why I like it is or don't hate it, is I feel like I operate better on getting that hour back.
Hmm, okay.
Because I'll say for the sake of waking up at a certain time and then not having to wake up at that certain time, it feels like it's being pushed forward more. Like I need that hour extra to sleep
Fair.
to feel better. And like I woke up Sunday and felt great. I woke up this morning and felt great, like earlier than usual, which
Definitely earlier than usual. Yep.
yeah. So I mean, I don't mind it. Like everyone's like, I hate that it gets dark so early. I'm like, meh.
Yeah,
Oh well.
that's the thing I don't like. I like having my light outside, but like Chloe Zhao, I like my natural light.
True.
It's the Eternals director reference. So,
I
what's up,
am.
everybody that's watching? If you're here, drop us some questions in the chat. We are going to be talking about spoilers pretty much the entire time here. We've got some other topics we want to broach when it comes to Rotten Tomatoes and box office and how this compares to other Marvel stuff. So we got a whole slate of fun things to talk about. But beware, there will be lots of spoilers about this film. If you haven't seen it yet, this may not be the live stream for you because we're gonna pretty much ruin the entire movie. So,
Yeah, there will be spoilers.
we did do a video last week after we got the chance to see this film. So if you haven't checked that out, Nick and I were both pretty positive on the film. We both enjoyed it quite a bit, contrary to what the critics have to say. So why don't we just hop right into that? So
Yes.
Rotten Tomatoes, Nick, I have some numbers here.
Hit me.
Okay, so Eternals is currently sitting at a 48% from critics, which makes it by long and by far the lowest ranked Marvel Cinematic Universe film. However, it has an 80% from the Rotten Tomatoes audience score. Now, to compare that to some other films that came out this year, The Green Knight, which is a movie that you and I both saw, we both enjoyed very much.
Yep.
Critics score on that is 89%, which is more in line with our beliefs. Audience score on that is only 50%. So interesting how things flip, right?
Yes.
And then in the very rare circumstance where audiences and critics are on the exact same page, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, the Marvel film that came out back in September, has a 92% from critics and a 98% from audiences, which means that movie is essentially universally loved.
Yes.
By pretty much everyone. So
yeah.
what is your take on all that and the whole Rotten Tomatoes audience score, critics score stuff?
You know, at the end of the day, even though we give scores here on this channel and show, it's a measure of weight as to how much we liked or didn't like it, right, or loved or hated it. And I mean, it's kind of crazy that these people or critically are getting paid to do it, and it has such an effect on a movie and whether or not people choose to see it or not. And obviously, I never pay attention to what the critics will actually say, because there have been times when they completely tank something like this movie, for example. And I want to say you guys are, I totally disagree with you. But then sometimes you might praise something and then I'll watch it and go, it was okay. It was mediocre at best. Despite what some of the things they might point out, which make it like amazing. But I think for something like The Green Knight, where I feel like a lot of people were misled, not intentionally, by the trailer was great, and the trailer made it
Mhm.
very, very mysterious, but not a lot of people knew what this movie was prior to,
Sure.
and it being like a 600-year-old poem that is extremely lengthy, with an unknown writer, and the amount of like transcriptions it's gone through with, like, famous people, C.S. Lewis, J.R. Tolkien, like, there's a lot to it, and it's very, very deep in meaning, and it's not something that I think people thought this would be, i.e., an action sort of
Yeah.
movie, like with the Knights of Camelot, and uh, but it was completely different,
Yep.
and where it was a beautiful movie, cinematography wise, the music was great, like the score was great, acting was well done all around, but yet people just didn't really connect with it, audience wise. And
Yeah.
that's always one of those interesting points where you've got these critics that judge a movie based on certain criteria, and then you look at the audience view, and they're like, it was boring, it was bland, it was, you know it- I walked out, or whatever it happens to be, right? Whereas something like Shang-Chi, which took everyone by surprise, and even though I think before we got to see it early, there was still a level of expectation, kind of knowing what kind of went behind the 10 rings,
Mhm.
with, possibly getting more behind, um, uh, okay, can't think of his name, Sir Ben Kingsley's character,
Oh, yeah.
um, you know, which we did obviously in the movie, but I would say, yeah, that movie was amazing. We all gave it high scores, and so
Sure.
that's where it lines up. But then we get to the Eternals.
Yeah.
And kind of like we said in the video, which we really didn't spoil a lot. So now we get to spoil the shit out of this
Yes.
movie here. Um, you know, the amount of things we see that takes place over 7,000 years. A lot of it coming from Erisham, and knowing more about the Celestials. And I did my fair share of reading
Yep.
prior to this movie coming out, with the Celestials, with the Eternals, how things were written, from the originals with Jack Kirby, how things were written when Neil Gaiman did his run, and they were great. I mean, like I completely enjoyed the storylines, and
Yeah.
the backstories behind these characters, which I feel like a movie like this, not a lot of people knew where these characters came from, and how long they've technically been in the Marvel universe, not just coming out in the 70s, but within the cosmic realm of Marvel itself. They've been around for a while, and
Yeah.
I mean, I think, I don't know if a lot of people are really kind of thinking about it like that. And I'm not saying you have to, but I feel like this is a movie that can allow you to expand your mind and your thought process about what this movie actually entails. Like, the fact at the very ending of the movie, not talking about post credit scenes, the very ending of the movie, when you've got Dane Whitman and Cersei in the park somewhere, in London, I think it was,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
And Erisham appears, like the skies part, and
Really
this
hard.
like
Yeah.
omnipotent, feeling comes over the planet, or at least that part of the world, and it's just like, ooh, and he just grabs her, and everyone just is like, what the fuck just happened?
Well, yeah. And he grabs her and Fastos and Kingo.
Yeah. And they're all chilling in his, in space, from what it looks like. And again, just the
Yep.
sheer volume of how big, the Celestials
It's
are.
massive.
I mean, yeah, it's absolutely massive. And again, I think seeing that for the first time in the MCU, like, I don't know if people just didn't care about it, or what. Like, I mean, that might have been on some of the parts they liked, but I think because of the implications that displayed there at the end, it's like, you don't understand how serious that is, because
Mhm.
what they were able to do as well by stopping Tiamat, who's the dreaming celestial.
Yep.
In the comics, case in point, he makes like Galactus is scared of the celestial.
Mm-hmm.
And if anyone knows what who Galactus is or what Galactus does, he eats worlds. And in the comics,
Yep.
he eats worlds because the Celestials put the little thingamabobbers. I can't think of what they're called. I think it's was it the fulcrums? Was that the word?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
The fulcrums inside the planets, and that's why Galactus eats them.
Yep.
But he's scared shitless of the celestial.
Mm-hmm.
And again, to make someone as large as Galactus be afraid, that's no easy task. And then the power scale, he's actually more powerful than the other Celestials.
Right.
There's only a few other cosmic beings that could really put him in his place. And I think at that point, again, you learning about the Eternals, like the Unimind, like they pulled a lot from the comics, which I really did enjoy. I really enjoyed the accuracy with things. And I think just for a story being a story, they did a great job in terms of trying to include some new characters.
Some is an understatement.
Yeah. And not all of them, live to see the next light of day. And granted, sure, it's like Arishem says, he creates them time and time again, and he could have. It's like he could recreate. Gilgamesh and Icarus, but he hasn't. Or Ajax, yes, but he hasn't. And it's like, is there a need to? Maybe not. Like we'll see. But I think again, because of what's happening in the MCU right now, having some of these Celestials left over to sort of tie into things makes it all really exciting. And I don't think a lot of people are kind of giving credit where credit's due. I think, and I think one of the biggest things I want to see people actually talk about is why they didn't like it, and not for story. Like I want to know why they didn't like it, not this other, like all this other bullshit. Like leave all that out. I don't care about about what the characters are, what they look like, how how they're represented. Take all that away, because at the end of the day, it doesn't mean jack for the entire story as a story. Like it really doesn't matter, because they could be anyone at any time over the course of 10 billion years.
Right. They change their appearances in the comics frequently, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, even for the sake of Ajax, being a man at one point and then dying, and then Arishem creating her again through the machine as a woman, as a female.
Right.
So canonically, it's accurate. So again, I think if people are saying I didn't like it because they changed the characters, for these Eternals, that is a moot fucking point. It does not matter how they appeared in this time, because just like Icarus had said, they could have been blue. Their skin colors could have been blue on an entirely different planet. Would you have cared? Would you have made a big deal out of it? Like, it doesn't matter. And I think putting that up as an argument, it holds no volume whatsoever. There's no weight to it. Right. It's like, you should just stop talking, because it doesn't mean anything in the story. It doesn't.
Right. I mean, you get Thanos. He's an Eternal with a deviant gene.
He's purple. Did you hate on him for being purple? No, you didn't, because Thanos is a badass. And like, yes, I'm not triggered. We'll
get there.
Yeah,
I'll do the best I can to get you to triggered.
I have my pre-workout right here. That's
that's a horrible.
I have not consumed yet, because that will just it's the PC principle GIF. Where you just hold the paper and it triggers intensifies. Like, I mean, I want to say people, I think, again, are kind of sleeping on this movie because of one reason or another. And uh, I, I'd like to see more explanations as to why people didn't like it.
I mean, I've heard a myriad of things. I've watched a bunch of reviews. I've read a bunch of things, and a lot of people say they don't like the pacing. They think there's too many characters. I've heard some criticisms on the action of the film, which I don't think the action was bad at all. Yes, they're fighting a bunch of CGI dragon lizards for much of the film, right? However, the action is dope as fuck. Like Makari and the super speed stuff is so cool looking. And when she's just like murking Icarus up against the wall of that
Oh
cliff,
yeah,
and the cliff literally turns red because she's burning it with her super speed. Amazing. Every time Gilgamesh would punch something and the entire theater rattled,
yeah,
fantastic. Anytime Thena created a new wild weapon, I loved all of that stuff. And Icarus's powers, yes, they are kind of Superman-ish, but it's cool. He shoots lasers out of his eyes. He flies. He's got super strength. Like that's cool stuff. And I thought that the way they handled a lot of it was really well done.
yeah,
I don't understand the complaints about the action.
yeah.
Maybe just because of the fact that Chloe Zhao is not really an action movie director. Like if you look at her filmography, it's a lot of really heavy drama, dialogue driven type stuff, and maybe she didn't do a lot of the action. Like that could have been done by like a second unit director. Obviously, a lot of it's done in post because there's a lot of CGI that's involved in it or whatever. But
Right.
I think that's a silly thing to talk about. If you're upset because it's too long of a movie, to a degree, I can understand that. I know that some people's attention spans, they don't want to go see a 3-hour Marvel movie. They want to go see an hour and a half long Venom 2 where they can laugh a couple times and then leave the theater. Like that's their prerogative. That's fine.
Sure,
For
sure.
me, I love long stories. I love Endgame. I can sit on my couch and watch the 3-hour movie for the rest of my life and be
I can watch them back to back and
right
in one sitting and be
exactly.
fine. I mean, of course, I'm an extended version Lord of the Rings person too. So, I mean, 12 hours, I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, the 2 hours and 37 minutes for Eternals is like a fucking cakewalk for you.
Yeah, no, like
But
that's a
um,
that's just a
I've
leg
heard
day.
I've heard some complaints saying like some of the characters didn't need to be in the movie. I don't know. Like I liked all of them, and I thought they all had something to contribute. Yes, some of the characters were not as important to the main story as others, but their powers were cool, and they all had emotional moments, and they had like a real family dynamic going, which I thought was fine. But critics aside, and numbers aside from there, yes, RIP Fastos' IKEA table. I built IKEA furniture this weekend with my girlfriend, and I'm glad Icarus didn't come by and smash it. What about a 4-hour cut? No, this is not a Zack Snyder film. Goodbye. Silence to you, Austin. So at the end of the day, be your own critic. You don't have to defend movies you like. You don't have to defend reasons why you don't like other films. If somebody didn't like it, they have the right to. That's fine. Hope you enjoy the next one. Spider-Man's going to be probably like your typical Marvel thing with like some crazy multiverse shit or whatever. But
yeah,
at the end of the day, throwing away the percentages and all that stuff, is this movie really worse than like Thor: The Dark World or Iron Man 2?
no way.
No.
No way.
Not even close.
Like I could tell you why it's not nowhere near as bad. Like and for those movies, I mean, I obviously don't know off the top of my head how long those were, but they were obviously shorter in length. But at the same time, I believe the director that did Thor: The Dark World said that he had a cut that was supposed to be longer or different, and it was almost like, so would it have been better? Don't know, because we'll probably never know. We'll probably never find out.
That's 8 minutes shy of 2 hours, so it's an hour and 52 minutes for Thor: The Dark World.
Which, to me, I know like early on, like the Marvel movies during those early phases didn't have a lot writing on it. I mean, there's a lot that was jacked up with Jane, Malekith.
Yeah, Christopher Eccleston did not enjoy making that movie.
Yeah,
He's not a fan.
Like they had problems all over with the story, the characters. God, like I tried. I think it's been a while since I watched, but I remember the last time I watched it. It was hard.
Dude, I fall asleep every time I try to watch it.
I got bored, which is the same thing with Iron Man 2.
Yeah, which is 2 hours and 5 minutes, by the way. So it's only a smidge longer than Thor 2.
Like there was so much just that was dumb. And I think that story should have been fully around AIM and AIM being developed into what we could have potentially gotten at some point in time with MODOK, but that was sort of I don't want to say missed opportunity, but like
Iron Man 2 wasn't the movie that it was supposed to be.
No, not at all.
It's on record that Jon Favreau was not happy with the production of that film.
Yeah.
Which is why he didn't direct the third one. Which thankfully for the rest of us, that led him on his path towards Star Wars, and we got a lot of good shit from him out of that. But he wanted to do the Demon in a Bottle storyline that really dives into Tony Stark's alcoholism, and the studio was like, no, he's like a brand new mega hero. We can't have him be an alcoholic like in the second movie. So a little bit tough when, I don't even know if that was before or after the Disney acquisition, but Marvel Studios was like, we're not going to do that. So they had to pivot. They had to make some changes. Instead, we got a weird Elon Musk cameo, and Mickey Rourke was a terrible villain coming off an Oscar-winning performance in The Wrestler. So who knows? So
things just aren't meant to be.
Box office wise, this one is fascinating to me because yes, we're still in a pandemic. There's a public health crisis. So a lot of these numbers are shifted off of expectations from where they normally are. But Eternals did $71 million domestically this weekend. It did $90.7 million internationally for a total of $161.7 million worldwide on a $200 million budget. That is not bad. It might have a little bit of an uphill climb because the film is not being shown in some markets because of the love scene between Icarus and Cersei, and then the kiss between Phastos and his husband. But Marvel basically gave the finger to all of those countries and said, we're not censoring our movie just because of your age-old beliefs. We can have a sex scene in a movie. It's perfectly fine. So it might not make as much money as some of the other films. We shall see. But to compare it to the other Marvel films that have opened this year, Black Widow did $80 million in its opening weekend, which is only 9 more than this. And, Scarlett Johansson is a established Avenger at this point, so she's going to draw money. Shang-Chi opened to $75 million, which is only $4 million than the Eternals did, and that movie had crazy word of mouth. Obviously, we talked about the Rotten Tomatoes score: 92% critics, 98% audiences. People were going to go see that movie because they heard how good it was.
Right.
It is still the highest grossing domestic film of the year so far. I think it's well over 200 million domestically, which in a pandemic is pretty incredible. Surprisingly enough, though, the highest opening for a Marvel film so far this year is Venom 2, which opened to $90 million in its first weekend, which if you compare, I mean, I think Black Widow is probably like at its core a better movie than Venom 2. But it's close. But I think Shang-Chi and Eternals were significantly better than Venom 2. And yet that opened to 90 million. So
yeah, I'd say at Marvel movies alone, Shang-Chi is top dog, number one.
Especially as far as origins go. That's a very good origin story.
Yeah. And I'd say, Black Widow should have been released right before, in between Civil War and Infinity War.
It would have crushed if it came out back then.
Yeah,
It made so much money.
Scarlett Johansson wouldn't have had to, make a big deal and try and sue Disney for some shit, and it's like
And she won
she did.
$60 million. She won.
She probably would have made more though because of how much money that would have made. Had it been released during that time frame,
full theatrical run.
Yeah, and so again, that's a topic for a different day, maybe. But
yeah,
Venom.
Venom.
Yeah, I like Venom and I like Carnage. I like all the symbiotes.
It's fun. It's fun and silly and stupid, and you turn your brain off and go see it. But
granted, it's like the Sony effect. Like I'm not a fan with the way they do things.
Like Morbius.
I'm not. I know we talked about this. I'm not excited to see that. I don't care that Jared Leto's in it. Like, I am not looking forward to that movie. I don't know if I'm definitely not going to see it in Dolby. That's not worth Dolby money, in my opinion. I might see it in like a lesser theater just to watch it, and then come on here and be like 6 out of 10. Bye.
Saturday matinee, $6 a ticket type thing.
Yeah, like cool. So Jared Leto was in it. He said some lines and things that were in every single Spider-Man universe.
Yeah, so weird.
It ended. I don't know where the direction is going. Some weird post-credit scene that doesn't make sense. They're tying things together.
Choosing chaos.
And so I guarantee you, I generally give it like a fucking 8 out of 10.
Yeah, probably
something stupid like Jared Leto was so good. Oh my god, like he carried this movie to extremely great heights. And meanwhile, the rest of the score is like, what are you smoking crack? It's a 5 or 6 out of 10. This movie was not good.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be very good. But so to wrap up the box office thing, just to compare it a little bit on the scale of where things fall, the original Ant-Man film only opened up to $57 million in its opening weekend, right? And that
wasn't during any sort of
pre-pandemic, right?
Yeah.
So I think Ant-Man came out in 2014 or 15 or something like that.
Around that, yeah.
Maybe 2016, but 57 million.
I think it was 2015.
Not a lot, right? However, you compare that to the other side of the spectrum. Avengers Endgame did $357 million in its opening weekend, which is literally like the bank just dumping cash into Disney's account repeatedly for like 3 weeks straight. That's just ridiculous amounts of money. So where we're at right now, we've had 3 MCU movies. They've all fallen between $71 and $80 million so far. So it'll be very interesting to see what Spider-Man does. I have a feeling that people are like losing their minds right now in excitement for No Way Home. I think that'll be the first one that cracks 100 million in its opening weekend. It might even do like 125 or 130 or so.
I think I had said like I wouldn't be surprised if it did like a buck 50.
It's possible.
And I think it's definitely going to be a hit worldwide because I remember this years ago, but out of all like the Marvel characters, Spider-Man was, if not one of the highest, if not the highest favored, and by favored I mean liked or
he's easily the most popular Marvel
character. Yeah, and rightfully so. Like, listen, Pete is a tremendous character. I have several of his runs comic wise, and things that are even recently with this comics have been really great too. And I'll say, for the sake of being this like the third movie, but it also has Doctor Strange in it, and things getting like there's so much that's going to be put into this movie,
right?
Villain wise, hero wise, rumor wise. I mean, like, if the rumors are true,
right,
and if Toby and Andrew are in this movie's gonna be just flipping money, just like
stupid amount of money.
It's gonna be raining checks. Like it's gonna be dumb, and like oh, you were right, blah blah blah. Like, and then maybe not, but I'd say also for the sake of like what that means going forward is, well, anything less at this point, like going into 2022 with with these movies because
Oh,
now
the
that now
expectations are going to be super high.
because things got pushed back. So now with Doctor Strange is being released in
May.
May, so now there's a 5 month gap instead of a three
Mhm.
month gap. Um, so I'm
Yep.
curious to see how that's going to affect things, and
It'll be interesting because we had Widow was in July, Shang-Chi was in
September.
September, this is November, and Spider-Man's December. So in a 5 month span, there's four Marvel movies. Now after Spider-Man comes out, you're gonna have to wait almost 6 months for the next one. And you might get like a TV show in between there. Like you might get
Yeah.
like a She-Hulk or a Miss Marvel or something like that. We'll probably find out on Friday
Oh yeah.
when they do
That's right.
Disney Plus Day and they drop a whole bunch of uh, fun stuff on us. But it
Yeah.
will be interesting. I think that after this, you're going to see a big pivot. You're already kind of seeing it where like the lesser known characters are starting out on Disney Plus, and then they will graduate to a feature film. So like your Monica Rambeaus, your Kamala Khans, your Moon Knights, your She Hulks, like people that haven't been in movies yet are going to be in a TV show first. And then when they get to a movie, all the movies next year, whether it's Doctor Strange or Thor or Black Panther or the Marvels, those are all like mini Avengers films when you look at the cast, right? Like they're
Yeah.
all super duper stacked. I don't think you're going to see a Shang-Chi type movie or an Eternals type movie again for a while from Marvel. I think they're going to relegate that to television, build a reason for the audience to care about them, and then graduate them up to the big features. But that's just what I think is going to happen. But we shall
Yeah,
see.
and that's an interesting point about characters that are new because the Eternals are new, movie wise, of course.
And that's
What's
what
it?
I mean in terms of Marvel Cinematic Universe, not in
Yeah,
terms of comic book stuff, because obviously they've
yeah,
been
yeah,
around
yeah.
forever.
But it's the same thing. Like Shang-Chi, I think came out comic wise in the 70s,
70s, yeah,
and
it was around the
a
big
lot of
kung fu
people
era.
did not know who Shang-Chi was either.
Mhm.
And that was sort of like it's been like my point lately is a lot of people don't know who a lot of people are in Marvel Comics.
Yeah.
I get it. If you don't read the comics, you're not going to know who they are. I can name a bunch of characters right now. They'd be like, I don't know who they are. That's
Yep.
fine. There's nothing wrong with that because it also means that it's exciting to see when those characters ever come to the big screen because
Mhm.
it's new to you for the first time. Whereas like something like myself, it's like, oh yeah, I know that character. They've been reading him for or her for a while now, and
Sure.
it's
At the same time, though,
it's still exciting to see them on the screen, right? Like
right?
it's going to be great to see Moon Knight
Exactly.
on the screen. Like it was great to see Thanos come to life.
Yep.
A
Well, I knew
lot of
who Thanos
characters,
was,
right?
but
Yeah, that's when they
actually seeing him in the flesh and be fully realized in like a live action environment was like so. Segue into post credit scenes for this movie,
yeah
like seeing the Ebony Blade on a movie screen,
yeah I
like
got
you get
hyped at
goosebumps,
that
right? Like
point. Yeah,
that is a super cool story and weapon, and the fact that like his family lineage has carried it, and it gives great power, but it also drives them insane, and it's got like some supernatural behind it, which of course uh, it was confirmed over the weekend by Chloe Zhao that
yep,
the voice at the end of that credit scene that said, "Are you sure you're ready for this, Mr. Whitman?" was fucking Mahershala Ali as
yeah,
Blade, and that's the first time you get to hear him. Like maybe we could see Dane Whitman in the Blade movie. Maybe we could see Dane
yeah,
Whitman in Moon Knight, because Moon Knight and Blade have a history, and there's like some Midnight Sun stuff that could be cooking up from Marvel.
yep.
I feel like these post credit scenes, both of them, not just the Dane Whitman one, but um, they're really setting up a lot of new stuff. I
Something
mean, like
big could be coming.
yeah. So I don't know which credit scene did you like more? Did you like the Eros one more or the Dane Whitman one?
Um, I think I liked Dane a little bit more.
I did too, just because Mahershala showed up. Like that
Yeah,
made it for me.
but even before we knew who the voice was, like I kind of read a little bit more about Dane Whitman's history, um, in the comics, but and obviously it could be completely different, but when Harry Styles showed up, I almost ruined that right before the movie started.
You did.
When I
I was
was
texting you like, shut the fuck up, shut the fuck up,
yeah.
shut the fuck up.
But it's and because our buddy Austin was like, oh, who's what's the name of Thanos' brother? And I was like, yeah, I forget his name. Uh, being Star Fox,
Right.
right? And him showing up at the end, which is great because he's an Eternal,
He
and
is.
so we lost some Eternals, but we just got one back, and there's a ton out there in the universe. Like
Yep.
people saying, oh, there's too many. It's like there's more than you
Tip of the
think.
iceberg.
There's more than you think. We just got a fraction of them in this movie, so simmer down a little bit. I think for the sake of like, I don't know, like saying there are too many characters in a movie. So Avengers, Age of Ultron,
Yeah.
Civil War, Infinity War,
I mean, look at
Endgame. That's
Endgame
5
itself.
movies right
It's
there
ridiculous.
had multiple main characters. So those are 5 reasons that moot point. Case closed, meeting adjourned.
Well, especially when this one focuses on just a handful of them.
and
like
some of them die. Like
Icarus and Cersei are the main characters of this film, right? Everything else is built off of the 2 of them. So it's really a story about 2 people. And then there's secondary and tertiary characters that make a cast of 10. But
right.
It's the same way that like Endgame is really about Tony and Steve. And everybody else is just kind of there to back them up.
Along for the ride, yeah.
So,
and I also Dane. Oh man, so I'll spoil something because I don't care.
This
Dane
is a spoiler show. So.
Yeah, it is. So this would be cool as shit to see in the movie, but Dan Whitman was an Avenger at one point.
Sure was.
So again, the Avengers are pretty fractured.
They are.
And him asking about like, are you sure you're not a wizard, Cersei? I didn't want it. He wants it though this time.
Yes, he does. But he's having trouble. He's like in and he's out, and he's like, I don't know if I want this or not.
I had to tell you something about my family. Too late.
Yep. Sucked up by
but just and I think it's just because of also him being Jon Snow and having a sword and him being the Black Knight. Like just having that sort of again that this magic behind it. And then him mentioning Doctor Strange. I wonder if there could be anything that he might have a say in. And again, if Dane ever decides to show up with the Avengers, because obviously the biggest point in this setting here, especially with how the Eternals stop Tiamat from coming up and destroying Earth completely, as he's frozen. What are all the other Avengers thinking right now? Right, like. What's Doctor Strange thinking as he sees this? What's Peter Parker thinking as he sees this? What's
right?
They're
all still around.
Yeah, like all the other heroes that are still alive are they're still like what's Sam and Bucky think, right? Like are they
think about Peter Quill, right? Like he might not be on Earth, but his dad was a Celestial, and he had Celestial powers, and he gave them up. He's very familiar with what those are. What like there's so many different routes that this could go, and it really does kind of change things, because up until this point we've had a little bit of stuff where like we've gone to Asgard for the Thor stuff, and we've gone cosmic a little bit with like the Guardians and Captain Marvel, whatever. But for the vast majority of the MCU for the last 13 years now, it's been on Earth, and everything has been Earth this, Earth that. Earth is the place where everything's happening. The big battles are here. Now it's like Earth is fucking tiny, and the Celestials were about to literally use Earth as an egg and just destroy it to be able to create more planets. And it just, the fact that it makes all of those characters that we've seen and we've looked up to that are kind of like comic book gods, right? Like an Iron Man or a Captain America. They're like little specks of dust in the universe. No pun
Yeah.
intended for the Infinity War stuff, the specs and dust. But it's wild shit, man. Like that is so cool to me. And like above all else, whether you like the story of this movie or you don't like the story of this movie, like you have to appreciate the the reframing that this movie does on the entire MCU. Like between this
Yes.
and Loki and like the whole multiverse thing, like shit is about to get completely nuts.
Yeah.
And
So
like if this is all leading towards like a Secret Wars, fucking hell, man. Like sign me up, dude. I'm so ready for that.
yeah. So I'll throw a little brief history about the Celestials in a nutshell, like based on what they talk about in the movie. But
Right.
there was the first universe, but there was a holy war between the Celestials themselves. They created one side created a bomb. It went off, and the fracturing. That's basically what created the multiverses.
Yeah.
And things were always kind of kept in line with each separate universe, but it's like the Celestials were still there, and at the same time, like what we have now and the implications from Loki, and more so Kang the Conqueror, he who remains, and being such a strong threat, power wise.
Which we haven't even seen him at his full capabilities yet.
Nope, nope.
Like I think Jonathan Majors did an interview a couple weeks ago where they were like, "Oh man, so what's up with He Who Remains and like being an Ant-Man?" He was like, "No, He Who Remains is not a character in Ant-Man. Kang the Conqueror is a character in Ant-Man 3, and he's a totally different beast than what you saw in that." And it's like, "Oh fuck, he's gonna be like stupid, evil, and powerful, just like he warned Sylvie. Wait until you meet my variants. Like it's coming, and it's gonna be wild. I'm so hyped for it. I'm just gonna like start shaking my table, going crazy. But
Yeah, because
it's
so
good.
this is like you know the characters that we have seen thus far in the MCU, right? And again, the place that we see in Infinity War and in I think it was it Guardians Nowhere,
Yep.
the Celestial head,
Severed head of a celestial.
severed
Yeah.
head of a Celestial, and people are like, well, I don't know if anyone's ever wondered how that could have happened. Spoiler alert: it was severed by the symbiote god Null. Null is an extremely powerful being, which we have not seen yet. But that's sort of one of my questions: is why include that if he's not going to exist? I know he hasn't been his name hasn't been uttered yet,
Sure.
but again, same thing. We know that the Fantastic Four are coming.
Yeah.
At some point. That
Confirmed.
also implies Silver Surfer,
Mhm.
Doctor Doom, and Galactus at some point in time. Like you're
Yeah.
not going to include the Fantastic Four without those major and well-known and loved characters. Right. Same thing with like Adam Warlock. Warlock is no one to be slept on as well. He is a powerful character.
Oh, yeah.
Like there was a part in the comics where after he stopped Thanos and he has all the Infinity Gems, because they were called gems in the comics, not stones.
Yeah.
The Living Tribunal was like, you can't have all those, Adam, because that would make you too powerful.
Too powerful.
I'm gonna need you to separate that with the Infinity Watch, and so he did. Yeah. But there again, you were going to see Adam Warlock at some point in Guardians 3, as I think production just started today.
Yeah, it did. That's right. James Gunn posted a photo of the whole main cast.
Yeah, and I didn't see Hemsworth there, but I'm kind of wondering where the separation takes place between him and the Guardians because of maybe him going with like Love and Thunder, or what the Guardians do separately, because you have to obviously include Adam Warlock now,
right?
But
yeah. I don't know, man. I have a feeling that the Nowhere thing, instead of being Null, I think they're gonna do Gore slicing the head off the Celestial, because he's like
that would be cool,
God Killer or whatever.
And Null did give Gore the God Butcher the Necro Sword.
Necro Sword, yeah. So I have a feeling that might be part of the reason why the Guardians of the Galaxy are in Thor: Love and Thunder because they have that connection to Nowhere already.
Yep.
And if Gore is coming after gods and Thor is the next person in his
His
crosshairs,
sights.
could
And
be
they did fight
wild.
in the comics.
They
So,
do, yeah.
you know, that is going to be, and again, like Christian Bale being
Yeah, it's
the character,
so wild.
I think he's going to be this awesome villain.
Didn't he swear up and down that he wouldn't do another
He'd
comic
never,
book thing after
yeah.
Batman? And then he was like, "No, I like Taika. Taika's
But,
pretty rad. I want to work with
maybe
that guy."
because it's like, I wonder if the convincing part was like, listen, Christian, it's only gonna be a one and done movie. Like this is
Oh,
it.
I'm
Like,
sure that's all it is.
you know, and he probably thought like, who was gonna be in it? Like, you know what? Like, I think this might be a cool character. And again, I think maybe just learning more about the character, and maybe he just wanted to do something like that. I wonder if we'll see any sort of like renditions of maybe being crazy or just lunatic like from like American Psycho. Yep.
Dude, he's got the chops for it.
He does,
Obviously,
man.
he's one of the best actors on the face of the planet.
Yeah.
I think that he could. I don't want to say that the Thor villains have been weak because I thought Hela was pretty cool, but like the Dark Elves before that, and like the Frost Giants in the first one, and like that one weird metal thing that like just shot lasers out of its eyes. It
Guardian thing
wasn't great. Like
No.
I would love if they had like a really deep layered villain in this movie. And if you get Christian Bale, you're not going to get him to just do something stupid. You know, he's going to show up and he's going to, you know, steal the show. So
yeah,
hopefully that's the case. And Taika has said that this is the wildest movie he's ever made, and that he wonders how every day they don't get fired for doing it. So it should be fun. But a lot of this stuff, a lot of it doesn't make sense unless you have the events of the Eternals to kind of usher in this bigger, more massive section of the MCU. Like Kingo says in the movie that Thor used to be like a Kingo fanboy, but then he went off and became a famous Avenger, and now he doesn't return his calls. Like that's the scope, right?
Like Thor's 1500 years old, right?
I think so, yeah.
And so obviously the Eternals, like even in this setting, they're 7,000. Even though they've been, you know, doing Erickson's bidding for millions of years, which is it's crazy because this it's expanding the scope of things, right? Like this whole thing on Earth isn't anything new. You know, and even though, you know, again, depending on when you want to factually look at when Earth was, you know, created like 4 billion years ago, but you know, the Milky Way's been around for 10 billion years or something like that, right? Like, I mean, it's one of those things where, for the sake of Marvel being Marvel and it being fiction and being like just, you know, very cosmic driven, and kind of like you and I were talking off stream, and you just mentioned it not too long ago about there's so many focal points about Earth, because all of our characters here, this is what like we try to relate to as viewers and you know fans of the characters, but we don't have Asgard anymore, so that place is gone. We don't have Xandar, that place is gone. Sakaar, or no, we haven't gotten Sakaar. What's the planet with in Thor Ragnarok? I can't think of the name off the top of my head.
Where Goldblum's at?
Yes,
that's Sakaar.
Is it Sakaar in the movie?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So Sakaar, like that's just different than the comics from what I was reading. Anyway, Sakaar, we probably won't go back there. So we got it for a movie.
But you know, Goldblum is in Love and Thunder,
right?
He's gonna show up. There's no way he's not gonna be there.
But I want to see some other realms, and I think that was one of the cool things about Guardians was where we actually did get to go to other places, around the universe, you know, and that was really the only other movie to do it. And I think that's kind of where, in my opinion, Marvel sort of needs to take some of these other movies is off world, right? Because it's, even Captain Marvel says in Endgame, like there are other worlds out there that need help.
Show me those worlds.
Cool. Right? Yeah. Let's go to those worlds, because there are way other, you know, more planets out there that could be, you know, introduce other characters like Nova, because, you know, Nova's technically from Xandar, but with Xandar not being around, we know he's not dead, because the Russo brothers, who were initially teasing him being in the end of Endgame,
Right.
but obviously not. And so at the same time, it's like he's not dead, but is he alive? Not officially. So there's still room for him to be like he was off in another mission or something like that,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
then he somehow comes back.
Yep.
I think that could be a possible origin story, but like half and half, where there's this catching up of how he kind of came to be, how he becomes Nova,
Sure.
a little bit more history within the Nova Corps.
Mm.
Um, and then maybe the second half of the movie is him kind of catching up with everything, and
Right.
him wanting to have a piece of Thanos for what he did, but it's too late. But now there's something else that he could be a part of to help out with, because Nova's
Sure.
a cool ass character, and I wish he could have been in the movie, but hey, that would have been another character added into the mix of things, right? So
Yeah. But you're gonna need characters like him
yes,
and Adam Warlock. Like if it ends up turning into something where it's like, hey, we need to fight the Celestials. Well, who the hell is gonna fight him? It's not gonna be Falcon and Bucky.
yeah, they're
Like,
not
I'm
gonna be able to
sorry.
shit.
Yes, he's Captain America now, but he's still just a guy. He's not even like a super soldier.
Yeah,
Um, you can't put those people up against a Celestial. You need to have your super high powered cosmic beings in order to do that and have it be successful. But I think the possibilities are endless based off of both of the post credit scenes we got in this one. We didn't even really talk about the Star Fox thing much, other than the fact that he's Thanos' brother. But um, who do we have on the ship there? We had Makari, Athena, and Druig, I think, were on the Domo
yeah,
when Pip the Troll, voiced by our man Patton Oswalt, drunkenly
yeah,
introducing Eros as the brother of Thanos. Uh, but Eros has his own little gold thing that Ajax had.
yep,
He knows where Cersei, Phastos, and Kingo are,
yep,
which kind of sets up a possible sequel. It also sets up a huge expansion of the cosmic side of the MCU, acknowledging that there are more Eternals than just the ones that we got in this movie. That Thanos' family lineage is still out and kicking. Like, I'm curious to see how Eros is gonna, like, will they ever show him reacting to the fact that his brother's dead? And
or what his brother did.
right, or did he believe in what his brother did? Because
Like
the Eternals movie kind of frames it like, well, maybe Thanos was trying to delay the emergences by cutting life in half, and like that turns into like a whole different was Thanos right conversation, which I don't think I want
eh,
to have on this show. But there's so much that comes just from those two little snippets, which is this is utterly fantastic. I cannot wait to see where it goes.
it would have been interesting though, right? If Thanos learned what Arishem was trying to do, and thus using the stones in a different way.
Right.
So it wasn't like, maybe I won't destroy half of life in the universe. Maybe I'll just prevent something else from happening.
Right.
By because again, if you take half of the population out, at some point in time, that reproduction will occur, and the Earth will be populated again.
Right.
So at some point, yeah, it just delays the inevitable, or what would have been the inevitable. So I kind of, again, this is one of those things where you and I were talking like in a what if scenario when we did
Sure.
our own made up what if episodes. What if Thanos was a good guy and was like, I fought all of you guys to fight I fought all the Avengers to get all the stones, and then Star Fox shows up and is just like, no, brother, don't.
Bro, what are you doing?
There's something you need to know. If you do
Right.
this, it's not going to really turn out the way you think. What do you
Right.
mean? And he fills him in and all this stuff, and he's just like, so my plan the entire time, my entire purpose was for naught.
Right.
And it was actually not worth much at all. It's like a
And Star
fool's
Fox
errand.
would be able to convince him
Yep.
because his power is being able to control and persuade people's emotions,
Yep.
which is really funny because like Harry Styles is considered kind of like a sex symbol out
Yeah.
there. and his character is able to persuade people's emotions. It's actually relatively perfect if you think about it. I don't know if he can act or not. I've never seen him act in anything before,
I
but
haven't either. It was kind
um,
of an interesting part. That's when I was reading the article. I'm like, Harry Styles is in
yeah,
this?
I
What?
don't know. I've never seen him in anything other than that post credit scene. So we'll see where that goes. But it is kind of perfect considering his status in the real world. But
Yeah.
Rocket with Bucky's arm, yes, that is one way to fight a Celestial. He is going to get that arm, even though it's not for sale. Joseph's in the chat. Joseph, what up? Do
Yo.
we think there will be a sequel considering all the bad reviews? I love the movie, by the way. I think
Nice.
there's going to be a sequel. I don't think Marvel necessarily cares much about the reviews. I think they care about their overarching story, and I think they care about money. And this movie did pretty darn well in its opening weekend in terms of revenue. And I don't think that they would lay down the crumbs for the stuff they did at the end of this one if they didn't plan on doing a sequel. Could it stand alone as a one-off type thing? Yeah, it kind of could,
Yeah.
because there's not a lot of connective tissue other than like a couple name drops here or there to the rest of the MCU. But I think this is supposed to be the vehicle that helps expand the universe and take us into a totally different place. So I think a sequel is inevitable, as Thanos would say.
Yeah, I wondered about that, because I think in some cases the direction that they're going now, again cosmically, when you've got the introduction of Kang the Conqueror, the introduction of the multiverses that have come from Loki, that have come from or will be coming from Spider-Man No Way Home,
Doctor Strange,
Doctor Strange, literally it says the multiverse of madness. Like
yeah, gonna be nuts.
we're gonna see some crazy shit in that movie,
Yep.
and I think even beyond that, like again, you've got more cosmic, epicness with Thor and Gore the God Butcher. Like, there's stuff that's gonna be super far out, and I think, I'm trying to stay away from all the rumors with Doctor Strange,
I've tried.
mainly because
It's tough.
like, yeah, it is super tough, and now the fact that we have to wait 2 more months makes it even
I
worse.
know.
But I think, it's like where else, if there's not going to be a sequel, where else will the Eternals fit in?
Sure.
And will any of the other movie characters mention them? It's sort of like, hey, maybe we should try meeting them, because it's like y'all have some cool powers,
Right.
and in case we face another, Omega level threat, it would be wise for us to team up. So,
Right.
it's like if another Thanos lines up, and the funny thing is, I think it's cool for us, where it's like we they don't know that Kang's coming. The only person that knows Kang's coming is Loki,
Loki.
and
That's it, man.
he's trapped in the TSA.
Poor
Like,
Scott Lang. Scott Lang is so fucked.
yeah, Scott Lang is about to have the
Poor guy.
rudest awakening. It's
Uh,
gonna be even worse when he was like waking up and like, wait, I lost 5 years of my life, but not really my life, but like
he'd be
Earth.
like, I just woke up and I have to deal with this guy.
Yeah, some purple dude that he could have just gone up his butt and just exploded from within.
Yeah. And it's going to
Um,
be in the quantum realm more than likely, right? Like, I think because the
yeah,
movie's called Quantum Mania,
yeah,
you'd have to guess that a good chunk of that film is going to take place at a subatomic level, which makes it even more interesting. Like, does Kang have a citadel in the quantum realm, just like he did at the end of time in the TVA? Like, does he have like a bunch of little splinter cells all throughout the Marvel multiverse? Who knows?
and one of the things I was trying to pay attention for when we saw the Eternals, I was trying to see if there was anything that was reminiscent that could have been from Kang, where he tries to go back in time and reinsert himself,
I didn't really see
especially
anything.
as yeah, especially not when they were like in the Middle East area.
Which
So
you'd think like maybe like a Ramatut thing, right? Like,
yeah, like
but who
I
knows?
I wanted to see something just like an Easter egg, and maybe there was something and we just missed it because there
Yeah,
was obviously so much going on, and I think that's just something either like you kind of have to wait till it comes out on
yeah.
like Blu-ray or whatever. But
Or maybe Moon Knight, because Moon Knight
Moon
takes
Knight
a
could,
lot of that takes place in Egypt. So
yeah, Moon Knight could definitely be a big thing. And maybe
Who
that's
knows?
maybe one of the next pieces we find out from. I mean, uh, I would look. I would be okay with there being a sequel. I think because Harry Styles is in it now. Um, and again, does that mean they continue on with Dane Whitman, or does Dane Whitman sort of venture off with the whole Blade
Yeah, that's an
movie?
open door for that
Or
character. If an Eternal sequel doesn't happen, the Dane Whitman
right?
thing can
Like
keep
I'm
going.
I'm really curious, and I feel like again, maybe people aren't too hyped because they just don't know where it's going. But I think that this is one of those scenarios where the people that do know, like the top tier characters, like Kevin Feige and some other people,
Oh
that are
yeah.
like we've got the storyboard for the next 5 years,
Oh, easily. They
if
probably have
if
more than that.
if more than that, but just like we know what comes next, and so like they see all these, and that's what it's like the laughable part, where like they're like, oh, people didn't like the Eternals, but it's like it still made $71 million.
In one
It's
weekend during a
in one
pandemic.
weekend, yeah, during a time where people still don't feel like going to the movies, and then whatever the critics want to say, I don't give a shit. I call them the critiots. But then you got the user, the audience, us, giving it an 80 still. This,
Yeah.
if this was more in line of like a 60 or a 50, then we've got a problem here, right?
Even so, like how many movies has Marvel made now? 25,
25,
26, something like
maybe
that,
something like
right?
that. Yeah.
If they have one that doesn't resonate with people,
One bad egg.
It's
Like,
it's it's less than 5%, man.
yeah.
Like,
Uh,
it's literally a blip on their radar. As far as Marvel goes, like, us as fans, we look at every single one as, like, this big thing, and we get excited, and we're super hyped to go see it, and then we talk about it for months after it comes out. For Marvel, Eternals is one cog in the wheel, because
yeah.
at the same time that Eternals is happening, they just had Shang-Chi and Black Widow. They have Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Thor, Black Panther, the Marvels, Ant-Man 3, Fantastic Four, and then whatever else they haven't even announced yet. Like
Yeah.
there's so much going on at that studio right now that they don't even have time to sit back and think about whether or not people liked or didn't like one movie. Like
Yeah.
I think the
It's
only one they genuinely cared about, like ridiculously sticking the landing, was Endgame,
Shang-Chi. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
because that's like the end of one chapter, right,
Yeah. Yeah.
of Marvel as a studio. And then from there, like everything else, they're at a point where they can throw shit at the wall and see what sticks, because they know that people are going to go out and see it no matter what. If it's got that Marvel logo on it, this pandemic has proven the strength and the power of the Marvel brand. Because if you look at box office for other movies, people aren't going to see them. You have
Yep.
stuff that's like $2 million,
Yep.
$4 million in its opening weekend.
Yeah.
Marvel movie comes out, $70 million,
That's
$90 million.
not that like I don't know in what people's eyes they think that's a flop.
Yeah. Like
Like that is
even DC
not.
stuff, like the Suicide Squad. Yes, it was R rated. Yes, it was on HBO Max. It didn't make a lot of money in the theaters,
Nope.
but Marvel blows the doors off everything. Like I feel like the only IP that could maybe compete would be like a Star Wars, but I feel like they're at a point where they want to make Star Wars movies like event films and not do
Which
four
they
of them a
should.
year
Yeah.
like Marvel does, right? So it's kind of even hard to compare that. There's nothing in Hollywood that is like this massive machine that, like, it honestly, it gives credence to Kevin Feige, like, to make the claim of being like the greatest producer to ever live. Seriously,
But
think
yeah.
about it. Like how can you build something that is so universally liked, makes so much money, and has to operate at such a high level just to keep everything, without crossing your streams or messing up continuity or whatever? Like it isn't even cross studio at this point. Like they're
Yeah.
working with Sony, and
Yeah.
they've had to do some work with like Universal and Paramount for the stuff at the beginning, and like the Hulk rights, and it's completely nuts,
Yeah.
what they do. Like I don't think people grasp how serious an operation this is. It's not just like,
It's a
oh
big
yeah, let's make this
operation. Yeah.
movie and put it out. Like that's what it was when Iron Man came out. They
Yeah.
didn't know if Iron Man was going to be a hit. And now they're at the point where it's like we have to think about now, but we also have to think about 10 years from now. Like most studios are not lucky enough to be able to think about 10 years in the future, but Marvel is so healthy and so profitable that they get to do that, which is just completely nuts. And we get to reap benefits because we're super nerds, and
Yep.
there's a ton of cool shit coming.
Yeah, the funny thing about Iron Man is prior to the earliest success coming from RDJ in the comics, Iron Man was like a B
Yeah,
C level character.
totally.
He wasn't didn't have a lot going for him. He
Right.
wasn't like the person that it was called upon or relied upon in any sort of battle or important
That's right.
event. It was the success of the movies that was like, well, maybe we should start writing the comics differently now because
Mhm. It changed
of
everything,
where,
dude.
yeah. And it's sort of like, look, I think it's just the opposite this is sort of the same thing with like the Eternals, where not a lot of people know about the Eternals, and granted, they're kind of like demigods. You know, they're not necessarily like given again like the sort of credit to what they can do power wise.
Right.
And again, because of the threats that are to come, like these little incy bitsy like characters like enemies, no one's going to be small now.
No.
The power like what Vision said, the challenge is just going to get larger
Mhm.
based on the it's like how much you can actually you can stand or take, right? So uh again, it's going to be pretty interesting because as far as like characters that we have that are enemies, uh like we've got on a scale of things, this is just like a power level list that I had looked up like earlier when I was doing a bunch of like reading, where like we've seen Dormammu, right? We saw
Mhm.
Dormammu
Yep.
in Doctor Strange. He's powerful,
Yep.
but he's not the most powerful. You know who's actually more powerful than Dormammu? Actually, no. Who isn't? Sorry, isn't is more powerful. We haven't seen yet is Mephisto. Um, there's other Hell Lords like Nightmare, which again
Mhm.
they'd be powerful threats, but they're not really that big. But
They're
then
not Celestials.
right. It's funny because who's actually stronger power wise than Dormammu is Kang. And that's and then from there we go up to Galactus and then the Celestials, like I mean, then there's just like then it just gets even crazier. But
I wouldn't even
um
sleep on like a dark version of Wanda. Like if the rumors about Doctor Strange 2 are that like she's kind of like the backdoor villain of that movie, watch
yeah.
out, man.
Yeah, because I mean, in the comics, I think we talked about this, I don't know, 6-7 months ago. But she in a mere thought made all mutants disappear.
Disappear.
Like that's how you got rid of mutants, and of course, that's how we thought the mutants would come to
Come
be.
back. Yeah. We were
Indeed,
wrong.
the
Very
existence.
wrong.
Yeah, we're wrong,
Everybody
but
was wrong about WandaVision.
yeah, but yeah, they were. Um,
Ugh.
but again, that's just she's definitely a threat. But I know there's like the rumors of Shumagorath that could potentially be in there, and there was like hints from it being in like the What If
Yep.
episodes, and in dark or evil sorcerer Supreme Strange, which is still one of the favorite characters that they've done.
Yeah, but like
Um,
that kind of stuff though, dude, like people were always wondering, well, how is Marvel gonna go bigger than Thanos? This is how.
yeah, I
All
mean,
of these
like,
characters are supercharged compared to Thanos.
yeah, like, and you have to have a higher level power to combat these things. Like that's
Right.
why Adam Warlock is being brought into this. That's
Mhm.
why, that's why we're getting Captain Marvel version 2, with Monica Rambeau.
And Miss Marvel.
And then and Ms. Marvel, which I'm really concerned about that because I don't know if they're gonna do the whole Inhumans things or what,
They're
but
not touching Inhumans. That is like a dirty word, I think,
even
around
though
Marvel
I know I've
Studios.
said this to you, but Black Bolt is one of my favorite characters.
Yeah, but they fucked it up
Um,
entirely.
yeah, they sure did, and I
It's
was
so bad.
very, very. If we were doing YouTube at that time, I would
Oh
have
man.
shit all over that. repeatedly.
those videos would have been fun back in the
And
day when like Agents of Shield was doing goofy shit
oh
and
god,
Inhumans
yeah.
was on, and
It would have been
like
Trigger Nick
the
24/7.
Netflix Iron Fist. Oh my god!
Oh my god, that was that
Look,
was
I'm Finn
terrible.
Jones. This is me doing karate.
And terribly and acting terribly too. Acting
So,
lessons, what are those?
oh dear lord. Anyway, well, either way, the Marvel universe, I think is looking bright. I know that
Yes,
this movie divided some folks, and that's okay.
good.
I think division is good when you're talking about art. Sometimes it's okay to dislike things. It's okay to challenge stuff. It's okay for
Yes.
a massive studio to take a big swing and go in a different direction and deviate from the formula that they've made 24 other movies from. So overall, I think this is a step in the right direction for Marvel. I'm curious to see where it goes. Can't wait for Spider-Man. You know, we're only about a month out from that, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Um, which is pretty wild. So I think that's about as good a place as any to wrap this guy up. We've been at it for about an hour and 15 minutes now. So really appreciate everybody stopping by
Yes.
to listen to us ramble about how super powered all these characters that you don't know yet are. I promise, if you don't know who any of these people are, buckle up. It's going to
It's gonna
be a
get
very
crazy.
very fun ride. If you thought Thor was powerful, you ain't seen nothing yet. So
Nope.
if you haven't liked this video, go ahead and like it. If you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, I'm guessing if you're watching this, you probably have, but tell your friends, subscribe if you haven't already. We're almost to 600. We're working towards 1,000. We appreciate all the support and help getting there.
Yes, we do.
If you want to check us out on social media, we are on Twitter and Instagram at Real Heroes Show. We had a video drop this morning talking about episode 8 of Foundation. We have video dropping tomorrow morning covering the first 5 episodes of Invasion on Apple TV. Nick is going to be doing a review of Narcos Mexico season 3.
Yep.
We've got The Shrink Next Door coming out this week on Apple TV, and then we're trying to shoehorn some movie reviews in there too for
Yes.
Finch and The Harder They Fall, which
Yep.
hopefully we'll be able to get to both of those. So again, thanks so much for coming by. We'll do this again in another couple weeks. Maybe it'll be Spider-Man, maybe it'll be Hawkeye, who knows, but we're trying to do live streams about every 2 weeks or so. So
Yeah.
stay tuned for all of those things and so much more. Until next time, we'll see you guys in the next video.
Peace.
All right, stream is over.